of cross-cultural dialogue as well. Ilja, let me turn to you. You're a grassroots youth activist. What can you tell us about working between faiths, and what kind of support would you need from member states in the work that you're doing to become really effective and continue to be effective?
Well, to start off, if I would have gathered €1 for every time in the last 2 days that I've heard that the Muslim community is the biggest problem in the fight against anti-Semitism, I would probably be able to finance my next conference. Having said that, the interesting thing is I don't even disagree to that extent. Yes, it's true that the Muslim community has a huge issue with this issue, but it's very easy to combat and fight. And now is the question, if you have identified this issue as a big problem, or when you talk to a lot of people as the biggest problem in this endeavor, what are you doing about it? And this is really something where we as a Muslim Jewish conference are a bit, let's say, surprised. We do understand that it's not an easy thing to do for an established community, it's not an easy thing to do for anyone to reach out, go across the aisle and talk to the people that actually, in their view, are the main reason for the problem. But we saw in the Muslim Jewish conference, and we have empirically proven, that you can take a person that was manipulated for 30 to 35 years and only heard the worst about the other one that you can imagine. You can take an initiative which features interaction, knowledge, and project-driven cooperation, and what a shocker, these people leave after a week of engagement cured. They go back to their own communities, and they're never going to be in a situation again where they believe everything that was told to them, where they become a multiplier for ideas which are based in racism. And this is, I think, something where, with all due respect, our fellow leaders in the Jewish community have to ask themselves, if this is our biggest issue, what am I doing about it? How many Muslim Jewish initiatives have you supported in your local community? How many Muslim Jewish dialogue projects have you funded as a Jewish community in your state, country, city, village, whatever? And I think there it's a big gap between identifying a problem and acting on it. And often enough, this comes back to the argument, well, it's a big risk to talk to them. Maybe we can't talk to them. It's a big risk to engage with them. Well, being very, very polemic, I think it's a much bigger risk sitting in a synagogue which is firebombed than going over the aisle and talk to the other side, which might come up with the one or other suggestion, recommendation, or even statement that we are not comfortable. And if we talk about innovative networks of cooperation, if we talk about these risks of talking, I'm also interested in the role of international organizations in that endeavor, because the youth is always called upon. We're always urged to step up, we're urged to challenge, transform, basically make the difference. But in our society, the youth is wasted by collecting 74 recommendations and doing 55 internships until they're in a position where they're taken seriously. By that time, they're 40 and have nothing to do with youth anymore. So the question here really is about taking risks, and taking risks in a sense that makes sense. From a financial point of view, if you have a 60% success rate for outcome, it's a no-brainer. You go in and invest. Okay, it didn't work out, bad luck, we'll try something else. But if somebody comes to the table and says, you know, I have an idea for an interreligious project, nobody did it yet, I don't know if it's going to work, it costs that much amount of money, the first reaction is going to be, well, why should we pay this? There's a big chance that it won't work. Yes! Big shocking, yes, and it's going to stay that way. But if you actually want to have civil society in a position to change something, and then you have to give them the tools and the means to do it. And when you talk about youth to go stand up and change something, that you maybe have to risk giving them a budget which potentially is not used or maybe doesn't have the outcome that you want to see. And I'll go in and become a little bit more polemic, and I just decided to basically throw over diplomacy completely because we have enough diplomats here anyway. If we make a little counting example, let's just think how much, and I don't want to say names, but let's phrase it differently. I've been to several international conferences in the last 5 years. Looking at all of them, it was interesting to kind of calculate by myself for a little game how much this conference has cost. Just these 2 days, food, the security, etc. May this be whatever organization. We as the Muslim Jewish Conference, bringing more than 500 people together from every single continent on this world in a grassroots structure. We've spent from 2010 to 2014, 450,000 euros. That's it. So if we are now identified as one of the main actors in Muslim-Jewish relations, if we are now in talks identified as the people, as the only organization that's internationally active, and this is our budget, and our youth is supposed to work for free for us and then go back to the Jewish communities and do their work there, or have a family, or basically just deal with their own lives, it's not gonna happen. So there is where not just the Jewish establishment, the international establishment and the international organizations need to rethink their approach. It's really about letting the youth off the hook and let them take the risk. If you don't want to be in this fight, if you don't want to take the responsibility and be the one that needs to react to everything that goes wrong, let them do it. You don't have to put your name on the project from the beginning. It doesn't have to be supported by all the international organizations, communities, and people of respect. Let them try, and if they fail, it didn't work out, and if they did a good job, then you can still put your name as an official organization on top of the project and say it was your idea from the beginning. So what I'm trying to really emphasize here is that civil society needs to be more than a token and excuse for the international community and also people in powerful positions kind of dealing with things without actually dealing with them. You have a big issue, you put together a civil society forum, and in the end, you still have the same issue. So also giving maybe the civil society the means to have their own networking opportunities, to do this, as you said, more than once a decade. To actually, maybe even as crazy as that sounds, think about an event where there is no establishment, but only civil society, and they have a week, not a day, to actually come up with solutions. How can we think that a problem that's 5,000 years old, like anti-Semitism, is going to be changed in a 2-day civil forum? That is very optimistic. Let's put it like that. I want to basically end with also saying that we need to be aware that fighting against all forms of racism is probably the only chance that we have to actually come up with a world and a future for our next generations where we don't hate anyone anymore because where they were born, how they worship, or the color of their skin. Thank you very much.